Well, good afternoon and welcome to our business review for the year 2018. Basically, we're going to look at what were the top issues in the year 2018, how did it affect business people out there, what were top issues, and going forward into 2019, how would it be? 2018 is indeed an eventful year with many things happening. The biggest was the Consolidated Bank and all the banking issues. Tax stamp was also big as well, together with the MTN IPO for the telecom sector, and also the icing on the cake, we say, is the men's gold as well as the unsolved puzzle. You're welcome back again to our review of 2018 here on Joy Business. How was 2018 like for you as a businessman out there? Was it an eventful one or was quite a challenging one? Well, here at Joy Business, we're doing our own review of the 2018 year, and let's find out how it has been for you as a businessman. But I'll not be doing this alone. I'll be joined in the studio here by Toma Emere. He is a business editor with one of the leading business papers here in the country, Gold Street Business, of course, of Wright, and also Godfrey Bobkin. He is an economist. He's a financial lecturer at University of Ghana Business School. He'll be joining us very soon in the studio. So let me first, Toma, and you can join in these discussions via our various social media handles, that is at Joy Business GH on Twitter and also on Facebook as well, and also all the media platforms and also WhatsApp as well. You can participate in discussion by telling me what was the good, the bad, and the ugly, the highs and the lows for you. And going into 2019, what do you want to be looking out for as a businessman? Toma, let's start first with things that happened in the first quarter. And one we don't forget about the Exxon Mobil issue. Quite a big company. We knew they wanted to be in this country all along. Now, finally, they are coming in.
Well, George, you know, that thing actually brought up a lot of controversy in terms of the relatively lenient terms they were given. But you see...
But Toma, hold on. Let me just first bring you a clip on this whole ExxonMobil issue. Then we come into the studio and Professor Bobke is going to join us and let's continue the discussion. Let's take a look at this whole video from ExxonMobil.
This day has been a good day in the sense that we have brought into our oil space a company with the strength, the reputation and competence. And that nameplate, ExxonMobil, in our oil and gas exploration space will indeed give us a lot of credit in the industry.
We are excited to bring our technology, and as you said, you know, we have a unique place on that, and we are looking forward to working here, to opening an office here, to working with you to hopefully find and have success in this ultra deep water.
It's a good day for Ghana, and I hope it's going to be a good day for Exxon. It's been a relatively tortuous road to bring you to Ghana, but you're here. And I want to welcome you very warmly. Welcome you very warmly for two reasons. One, everybody knows about who you are and the very, very critical and significant role you play in the global energy sector. You're one of the leading lights for all kinds of good reasons: financial strength, technological capability, and the attitude and standards which are associated with your name. We're expecting those standards to be brought here to enhance the development of the Ghanaian energy sector. Looking for companies with best practices to come here and also participate in the development of our energy sector, especially enhancing the Ghanaian participation in the energy sector. I know of all kinds of things that are associated with you, Exxon, campuses, etc., and training people, enhancing their capability. We're expecting that those things will also accompany your presence here. On our part, we're going to be a loyal and faithful and strong partner. We expect you to respect the terms of the agreement. On our side, too, we will respect the terms of the agreement. We're determined to work with you to make sure that the benefits of the investment that you're going to make in our country are the benefits of the people of Ghana. Ultimately, they are the beneficiaries of what you're going to be doing, that the people of Ghana enjoy in full the benefits of this agreement. For myself, I'm particularly happy about this occasion because I think that what you represent is something that will go towards enhancing the development of our own energy industry.
So indeed, we'll start our discussions with development in the oil and gas sector. And of course, it has to do with the ExxonMobil issue. And also, let's not forget about the signing of the $2 billion barter arrangement, whether it was a loan, it wasn't a loan, with respect to the extractive sector. In other words, Professor Godfrey Bobkin is an economist. He's a finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Toma Emere is a business editor with the Gold Street newspaper. Gentlemen, welcome once again as we review the year 2018. Mr. Emere, let me start with you first. Oil and gas, ExxonMobil, they're saying that when this company moves, it's like a whole economy getting into another economy.
Well, the thing, George, is that, I mean, ExxonMobil's coming to Ghana is I mean, it gives us, it's a good thing in terms of the credibility of our industry, which is still quite young. I mean, if ExxonMobil comes in, it's like a vote of confidence, you know, for everybody else, you know. But the other side of it was, I mean, the terms, the relatively lenient terms that were given, you know, to ExxonMobil, which attracted them in. It sets a precedent for other big oil and gas exploration and production companies. When they are coming in, they are going to say, look, but you did this for ExxonMobil, what about us? All right, that's one thing. And another thing that it also raised questions about the integrity with which our industry is being run. I mean, let's face it, the way the whole ExxonMobil thing went down showed that the minister is given too much power in terms of making such decisions, which, I mean, nobody is saying that there was any malfeasance in this one, but it shows that with that kind of power, it creates the possibility for malfeasance somewhere down the line if the minister chooses to be malfeasant. In terms of the fact that he was given so much power in order to adjust the terms of entry for oil and gas major.
But Toma, what would you tell those who would argue that for some of these big firms, you need to find a way to attract them in? When Exxon moves, they move with a whole lot of financial institutions, other players in the oil and gas sector, and at the end of the day, it's your economy that benefits.
Let us not overestimate the sheer power of ExxonMobil in what they are coming in to do. Tullow, at the time Tullow came into this country, Tullow was still a small-sized oil and gas company by global standard. Now, I suppose you could call it medium-sized, all right? They come in, the Jubilee find is done, and these guys move from plan of development to production in what, 42 months or less. Virtually world records amount. The fact is that it's not like Ghana has so much potential oil and gas resources that only the very biggest companies will be able to finance such things. All right. I mean, so for practical purposes, I don't think we should over-exaggerate the potential impact of ExxonMobil coming in, because whatever fines they will make, unless I'll be very surprised if they make any fines that are so large, there's only a company that has that kind of clout that will be able to move to
Toma,
production.
let me quickly bring in Professor Godfrey Bobkin. He's an economist. Let's look at on the economy side and on the finance side. ExxonMobil coming in, excellent for us. We're so excited because of how that entry would impact on the economy.
Well, I think we have to be cautious. ExxonMobil is not Father Christmas. They are not here because they love us. They love their profit. They've done the analysis. It's good for them to come. That is why they have come. But I think it's also good for us in terms of the profile that ExxonMobil has, and also in terms of the stringent reporting requirement in their home country, which perhaps also encourages them to transmit similar practices wherever they go. So for that reason, we say that it's okay. But I think that, look, the oil and gas that we have talked about and all of that, I don't think that it has really impacted our economy that much, even with the discovery and all of that. So I think we still have to be cautious. We still have to put in place the right measures to ensure that we get our fair share, even with ExxonMobil coming on board and all of that, and the local content that we are talking about and all of that. So I think that it's not the solution to all our problems. Of course, they have come in, of course, the benefit and all of that. We can discuss that and hope that they actually do happen, because these are projections and all of that. But I also want to touch on the fact that we have improved a bit as a country when it comes to the sharing of the oil blocks and all of that.
There was an auction as well, and trying to about 16 international oil firms,
and all of that.
BP and all the rest are trying to come in.
From perhaps in the time past. I think we are learning from our own shortcomings and benefiting from the learning curve, which I think is very good. But at the end of the day, if you even look at the 2018 budget, the 2019 budget, how much we are getting from the oil by way of tax revenue, it's not that significant. I mean, and then the fact that our economy is driven largely in the last couple of months by oil and gas production, hydrocarbon production, in itself, even though it may seem to be very good, but it's not inclusive. It doesn't come with a lot of job creation. So these are issues. And then also, you also want to look at where hydrocarbon production itself fits within the broader economic drive, as we also wait the birth of the fourth industrial revolution. How relevant really is oil and gas in this so-called fourth industrial revolution and all of that, as a lot of countries are migrating towards electric cars and all of that. And so I think that, and of course it has a terminal value as well. So we should be looking at building our economy in such a way that we will still be strong, whether with more oil and gas or not, is very, very important. And I think that, so whatever little that we get from oil and gas, we should be able to channel it into those subsectors of the economy that can actually drive growth and job creation. Is very, very important.
I'll get back to you as we move the discussions to the Sino-Hydro deal, of course. Toma, quick point on that one before we move on and discuss the Sino-Hydro deal.
The thing about oil and gas contributions is not so much the actual amount of revenue is bringing as proportion of our total revenue. It is the foreign exchange.
We need it so badly.
If you take out the foreign exchange, which comes from the oil and gas, from the upstream oil and gas industry, and which finds its way to the local forex market, if you take that out of the total supply on the market, all right, you would have a significantly different exchange rate right now. That is the important. It's not the total. It's not the total revenue.
Want to make a quick one, Prof? You're trying to,
Yeah, I think that fine. I respect his view on that matter. If you see the statistics in the last couple of quarters, you will see that our trade balance is positive. Ideally, that theoretically, that should be contributing to the strengthening of the local currency. That is not happening. It's largely because the service account is deficit, and it has more to do with the ownership of this foreign exchange driven by oil and gas, because most of the companies are not resident here.
Are still sending their monies outside.
I mean, they're actually keeping it outside and all of that. So we have to do a lot more to improve on the local content as a way of also ensuring, even it's not only the oil and gas, even mining companies and all of that, even with the agreement that we signed with them in terms of they repatriating some of the foreign exchange here, we are not seeing that. So we are seeing a trade balance that is positive, that should strengthen the local currency, but it's not coming because of the negative offsetting effect from.
Let's look at the Sino-Hydro deal. Loan, not a loan. Was it really a big deal, or it was more of, might I do about nothing, Prof?
Yeah, I think that our view may not matter that much now, because the minority in Parliament actually took the issue to the IMF and said that you are the best marker, you are the best examiner in this matter. After our own Parliament had approved the transaction and perhaps not sure what exactly it was. But the IMF has made a pronouncement on that matter that it's not a loan and all of that. And I think that is largely consistent, because when you look at that memorandum of understanding with the current extended credit facility with the IMF, it will be very difficult to judge the transaction as a loan.
Loan or not.
Actually, as a loan.
Prof, hold on there. Let me just bring in this clip on the Sino-Hydro deal, and then we'll get back into the studio for our discussion on this whole thing.
The key thing there is this.
Ghana.
The Bui Dam investment was roughly about $400 million. So that was when I was foreign minister. Now I'm president. So the arrangement should be even bigger.
所以我们之间的这个合作应该更加的广泛。
And that's why we're here today. We're very, very determined on this Sino-Hydro arrangement. And we're counting on you in the way in which you worked with Bui Dam, the high quality work, that will also be a feature of the arrangements that we're making with Sino-Hydro. And therefore Ghana too is very keen on providing as much support as possible to make the Sino-Hydro arrangement come on stream quickly. My understanding is that the agreement that was signed this morning with the Sinosure agreement, with the signing of the agreements this afternoon that we're going to do here, will complete virtually the entire group of documentation that is required to get the Sino-Hydro transaction on the way. There's great expectation in Ghana about the benefits of the Sino-Hydro transaction. It is my hope and expectation that when we conclude the signing this afternoon, the way will be open for the Sino-Hydro to get on site in Ghana and begin the process of delivery under the agreement. A lot of trust has been built between Ghana and Power China, and so, but the $2 billion transaction, which is involved in the Sino-Hydro transaction, we're looking to increase it even more. That's why I'm saying that as president, I'm expecting that we'll have even more than before. I'm satisfied about the capacity to do it, and we will have all the support that you need from the government of Ghana.
So you heard the president there as well, giving us more details on this whole Sino-Hydro deal. And Prof. Bobkin, you were making a quick point as we try to wrap up again on another critical thing that happened in 2018. Not a loan, it's a loan. We are going to benefit, you are not benefiting, and all the rest. For you, as I asked you earlier on, was it more of much ado about that thing, or the fact that as an economy we need this amount of money, therefore let's go for it?
I think we need it. I think we need it. We needed it like yesterday. That is a fact. I think the terms and the issues we are not too clear about as of now. But as of we needing that money, I think we needed it, and government needed to act quite quickly because we have a huge infrastructure deficit. We don't have the borrowing space, but how do we leverage these natural resources in a manner that is also beneficial to us? I think that is the approach that government has adopted.
Thomas, have we learned our lessons when it comes to dealing with China and also loans? We will talk about this. I hope I got it right. The CNT loan or whatever ended up in a dressmaker's office or what in London. We also have the XTC loan and all the rest. And we keep on getting caught up in these things. No, but you remember the first loan from China and what happened? Yes. Are we so desperate that we even don't go through the documents, the fine notes, and then we just append our signature?
The fact is we are desperate. But at least the situation has been improving.
Yeah.
First time around, hairdressers saloon in London. Next time around, the China Development Bank, we got part of the money. In fact, we didn't get more of it because the government of the day refused to do the right.
But we understand the Chinese, we kept on changing the terms of agreement, and that's what the Tucker said.
It was more our fault. We had overall an agreement. We had an overall agreement, but the thing contained so many different projects. And the Chinese wanted a viability study on each one separately. And we failed to provide for most of the projects. The ones we provided for, we got the money. Primarily, of course, the Atubo gas infrastructure, but there were one or two more that we actually did. We provided what the Chinese asked of the viability studies, and we got the monies. But the fact was that we didn't, to be fair, at that time, the then opposition, which is now in government, warned us about this in Parliament. I remember Dr. Akoto Osai was saying it, that look, if we don't do these individual viability studies and show the Chinese that the loans are self-amortizing, we will not get the money. And the government at that time said, and it's exactly what happened. Exactly what happened.
Are we going to get everything? Are you that optimistic going through the documents, having at your back of your mind what the Chinese can do? I am skeptical about us getting everything. I don't know about you.
I think that China itself, for its own credibility, and reputation in Africa, and Ghana for that matter, has a role to play in ensuring that this transaction actually works out.
You think they really care?
Well, they have to care because the media, civil society are becoming more assertive, following development, and also monitoring China's own strategy towards Africa and all of that. That's what is happening. So I think that China has a lot more to do. Forget about the fact that we didn't do our part well and all of that. But of course, China has a lot to do. China has a lot to do also in terms of transparency and disclosure in how they deal with Africa, not only Ghana, is very, very important. And we are all watching, not that we are so important, but we are watching from our small, wherever we find ourselves. So those are the issues. You also observe that the traditional debt market has been a bit saturated, especially for African countries. And therefore, they need to use some of these ways in accessing capital, in reducing the infrastructure deficit, seem to be appealing today, regardless of the challenges and all of that. Because I mean, the international capital market in terms of Euro bonds and the rest of them, the way they used to receive African countries, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it has changed. The premium, the cost, and all of that, they are quite a lot now.
Monetary easing has stopped.
Yes, and all of that, and also the strengthening of the U.S. economy, and then all of that normalization of monetary policy there, and all of that. So I think that these are interesting times, challenging times, but I want to believe that we are making some progress. Of course, the bauxite and all of that, once there's market, there's a willing buyer, I don't see the reason why this thing shouldn't work.
Exactly.
Okay. So, we're gonna, we have our own thing when we do the review for this year, and we have our cards in here, the gold star, our black line here. Look at the one that is keep watching. The green line is here. The red line is here. It reminds me of primary school when they used the items to actually guide us.
Our children will be wondering whether we have joined them in the kindergarten or something.
So Sinohydro and also ExxonMobil.
I hope we are not cancelling the transaction here.
No, we are not, actually. So for ExxonMobil, I would give a gold star, and I am very optimistic, not just about the fine details of the agreement, but the fact that when ExxonMobil, they move into an economy, what they bring, you could look at some of the multinationals coming in as well. And we also understand other major oil firms from the US are also trying to come in. Could be a partnership and others. So I'll give a gold star on the ExxonMobil issue. I don't know what my guest will say, which maybe I don't matter here. You matter as well.
Okay, I'll go with this one.
And then also Thomas is also giving us a green line here.
I'm not giving it gold because, it is very, very good for Ghana. But as I said, the terms could serve as a precedent for other major countries that are coming, and that could be a problem for us. So that is what
Sinohydro. Let me start with Bob. Can I have my own views on the Sinohydro? Whether you are still
I was waiting to copy you actually. But this time around, I've got to think for myself.
You cannot copy me. So let's look at whether you are still watching, whether you are skeptical, whether you are not really, well, let's see what happens, or you are still watching the space. So a green for that one, still watching more of that space. A gold star for that. I am still watching that space because I'm a little bit skeptical about this whole arrangement and what would actually.
Okay.
George, think about it. Without this deal, 2019 will be the third successive year where we don't have any capital budget of significance. Where our infrastructure deficit, as large as it was that the Chinese government came in, was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Look, during the Mahama administration boasts about its record when it comes to infrastructure, but we all know how heavily we borrowed and the repercussions we are now going through in order to finance the infrastructure he did. Now these guys come in, there's no space to borrow like that. In fact, because of the debt that came to me, they couldn't even do any capital expenditure.
It's been very challenging for them.
So they had to now think outside the box in order to get this one. So for this one, even though there are certain risks attached, I think that under our circumstances, it was very well done.
I will do this.
Okay, green as well. Interesting. Yeah. So, this is our review for the 2018 Joy Business. It's live on our Joy News channel, on Multi TV, and also on DSTV channel 421. And don't forget our various social media handle, that is Joy Business GH, the Twitter handle, as well on Joy997, and also on the Joy News on the Multi TV. You can also send me a tweet on my Twitter handle @JWeAreFit. And we move into a very, very interesting sector which it got a lot of people talking in their banking offices, their office, their homes, the banking sector. This year, a very, very, and I'll say very interesting sector. When you look at the banking space, the news that we are hearing about, even government stepping in and all those things, and what are the implications for you? And I remember, give me your highlights for the year. Drop me a WhatsApp, drop me a text, a WhatsApp as well, and also Twitter and also on Facebook. And we will read your comments here. What were your highs and lows, and who were your winners and losers for the year 2018? Let's start first with a little clip that actually sets up the motion, or sets up the discussion for us to review for the year 2018 when it comes to the banking sector.
Within a space of just 1 year, 7 banks, all of them local, have gone down. And guess what? 3 of these banks, I was actually banking with them. Well, so First Capital Plus Bank, and then indeed the Construction Bank, and the very first one, which, well, I can't find my checkbook, was the UT Bank. Exactly how their collapse has affected, 1, the economy, 2, labor, and indeed, well, the general governance of the banking sector. That's what I'll be drilling down on, well, on AM Business. On the 14th of August 2017, UT and Capital Bank had their licenses revoked by the regulator and some selected assets and liabilities purchased by GCB Bank, and an over 2 billion cedis bond issued as a buffer in a move never seen before, and that has rocked the very foundation of the banking industry.
We have been engaging these banks for some time now. Those who had capital challenges by way of solvency, those who had liquidity challenges, we asked them to submit recapitalization plans, which were also going to address the liquidity challenges that they had, and they did. And we kept monitoring the situation as far as implementation is concerned. But we realized that they were not able to implement the plans that they submitted, and their financials kept deteriorating. So on the day that UT Bank went down, how did you report the issue? Did you see it coming as a journalist?
Anyone who has been following development in the industry would, and for a lot of people in the market, the players, they knew about all these things. The problem was when the action would be taken. And for a lot of people, the industry players was when would Bank of Ghana take the action rather than something that wouldn't happen.
By August 1st, 2018, the Bank of Ghana revoked the licenses of yet 5 other indigenous banks in the country. On the same day, a license was granted Consolidated Bank Ghana, a wholly state-owned bank with a stated capital of 450 million, exactly a year after the 2 banks had collapsed. This time, the bond issued was $5.76 billion to also serve as a buffer.
Unibank and Royal Bank were identified during the AQR update exercise in 2016 to be significantly undercapitalized. The 2 banks subsequently submitted capital restoration plans to the Bank of Ghana. These plans, however, yielded no success in returning the banks to solvency and compliance with prudential requirements. The official administrator appointed for Unibank in March 2018 has found that the bank is beyond rehabilitation. Shareholders, related and connected parties had taken amounts totaling 3.7 billion cedis, which were neither granted through the normal credit delivery process nor reported as part of the bank's loan portfolio. In addition, amounts totaling 1.6 billion had been granted to shareholders, related and connected parties in the form of loans and advances without due process and in breach of relevant provisions of Act 930. Altogether, shareholders, related and connected parties of Unibank had taken out an amount of 5.3 billion cedis, constituting 75% of total assets of the bank. In the case of Royal Bank, an on-site examination conducted by the Bank of Ghana on 31st March 2018 revealed a number of irregularities. Its non-performing loans constituted 78.8% of loans granted, owing to poor credit risk and liquidity risk management controls. A number of the bank's transactions, totaling 161.9 million cedis, were entered into with shareholders, related and connected parties, structured to circumvent single obligor limits, conceal related party exposure limits, and overstate the capital position of the bank for the purpose of complying with the capital adequacy requirement. In the case of Sovereign Bank Limited, as part of Bank of Ghana's investigations into the failure of Capital Bank Limited, currently in receivership, it emerged that Sovereign Bank's license was obtained by false pretenses through the use of suspicious and non-existent capital.
So that was the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, giving us some review of actually what went into taking those actions as a regulator. So I have my guests with me in the studio here. I know that's a talking point in your offices here. Who will make it, who will not make it, or maybe everyone is going to make it. But let's backtrack and how this started. People have questioned the Bank of Ghana on their approach. It was wrong, it was right, and things have rather gotten worse than we all thought it should be. Toma, you've been reporting on these things, always splashing the headlines and all the rest in your newspaper.
Well,
what does that mean?
Well, look, initially there were serious regulatory lapses. I still say that it took the IMF coming in for us to begin to
put pressure on the Bank of Ghana, actually.
Exactly, to correct those lapses. But since then, I think Bank of Ghana has basically done the right thing. All right, I think they've basically done the right thing. I know the latest issue, this latest bonds.
We'll get to that, but let's get the.
But prior to that, I think Bank of Ghana basically has done the right, with some couple of exceptions, of course. The issue there is in the details, but broadly, I think they've done the right thing. You know.
Prof. Bobkin, let me bring you in. Banking issues, the way they went about collapsing some of the banks, the way they went about withdrawing the license. People have raised issues about the fact that there were some banks that were doing very well. They were not to mention names, you could talk about even the Royal Bank, that if they had given them a little space to correct their books, there wasn't a need to withdraw the license.
Well, I think that Bank of Ghana just didn't move in to withdraw their license. They had done the analysis, assuming you even want to believe that the current leadership had issues. Way back in 2015, there was an asset review in the banking industry that actually flagged some of these banks. And another one was done in 2016, and it was very clear some of these banks needed to go under the water. Perhaps we should have taken action then, and it wouldn't have perhaps gotten to where it got to in 2017 and all of that. Probably the 2016 elections may have played a factor in the government not moving in and perhaps trying to see what will happen. But you can see largely that we can blame the bulk of all that has happened there on the doorstep of the central bank as the regulator. People respond to incentives. So the kind of incentives the regulatory body put in place in itself was an issue. And largely you can trace it to one, that whether the Bank of Ghana itself is independent, perhaps theoretically independent.
That is where my problem is. And I want to compare, and again, we are now getting the issues in the US where even Trump wants the Federal Reserve to drop rates. The Federal Reserve is, he appointed the chair. I'm sorry, we are going to base our judgment on development in the economy and not what the president wants or wants us to do.
But that's exactly what is going on right now. Government wants Bank of Ghana.
If government
wants the Bank of Ghana to drop rates, and Bank of Ghana is refusing to drop rates. That's the situation we're in right now.
But there are regulatory issues where the government comes in.
Now that is the issue. That is the issue.
The water
where
on the
that
face
comes
Bank
to
of Ghana.
Money.
Yeah, and all these things played a factor in how some of these banks got their licenses.
Yes, there were political pressure for
the political interconnectedness and all of that actually didn't help us. You do want to mention that Merchant Bank now, Universal Merchant Bank, and a whole lot of things in the banking industry that itself created the impression that, hey, central bank had gone to bed with some of these players. Importantly, then you also want to examine the role of the central bank in all the numerous banking awards that we have seen over the period.
But those were independent. I mean, there have been arguments about, some would say that these were opinion-based awards. I would like Professor Bobkin's bank because of customer service. But when I do a due financial diligence on your numbers, you might not be good.
You know what? When you tell somebody that this bank is good, what you are saying is much more than what customers are saying.
But there was an opinion-based report.
And when you go there and start praising these banks, it's much more than just what customers are saying. I'm not done yet. Then you also want to look at the role of auditors in some of these failed banks as well, whether they were actually doing their work. Of course, we know the audit opinion is always one page. What changes is the year. But that is fine. If somebody says it's always one page and all of that. So we want to see there are a lot of unanswered questions as to the role all these people, because auditors have a very important role to play in corporate governance, arrangement and development and all of that is very important. Then you also want to look at the shareholders. Their role in itself, which I think that has been below, the average. And some of them, if you look at perhaps the report that we have received, of course, we have to also leave some room for whatever and all of that. In terms for some of the banks,
I don't know whether we should look at this at the last end, but I should bring it up. And Tuma, for you, whether the corrective measures have been put in place for those who caused these troubles for us, have we dealt with them? Has the laws dealt with them? Or some are saying that I read developments in the U.S. market and all the rest, and Bill Gates, and then also I've forgotten this Canadian billionaire in U.S. who's forecasting again that there will be another round of financial crisis. Have we put in place those measures that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we wouldn't have this problem again? The individuals have gone scot-free. There are banks that couldn't meet the minimum capital requirement. They knew that, government will step in and bail me out. So Bank of Ghana, give me a break.
We have put in place measures to prevent this thing from happening.
The laws, however, which always had been there.
The directive, especially the corporate governance directive. No, the corporate governance directive, because that is a failure of corporate governance. And that's what is being addressed. However, this our big manism syndrome here has not taken away the impetus, the incentive to misbehave as a bank owner or manager. What we have done is effectively that we have tried to block the loopholes through which owners and managers can misuse bank money. But we have not at all made any effort to disincentivize the desire to do such things, because everyone is still working free. I mean, despite all we have heard about how bank directors have misused money and bank managements have done absolute rubbish, and not one single person is being prosecuted. So what we are trying to do is to create a situation where they don't have the chance to do it anymore. But the incentive to do it is as strong, if it's even stronger now than ever, because people have now seen that if I can find a way to evade those loopholes, I can do it and go scot-free.
Professor Bobke, whilst we complain about this, some would also argue that it's about our laws. We don't live in a banana state. We have to let the laws work. And maybe that is where the problem is.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps I'm not a lawyer. I'm told that the wheel of justice is very slow.
Yeah.
It can be as slow as going from here to maybe a brie.
I think it's broken.
doing a bridal match, actually.
I think and all of that. But I think that we also have to give the benefit of the doubt to maybe the legal system, and also trust that various investigations and all of that will be carried out to the very end, and all of that. These individuals also have their own rights and all of that. They should also be given the opportunity. We haven't heard from them that much in all this. Perhaps they should also get the opportunity to give their side of the story and all of that. And like we always say in academia, we know in part, and we profess in part and all of that. So we see it that way. But we've seen quite a number of issues, not only in the banking industry, that perhaps do not give the average Ghanaian the confidence that these things would actually see the light of the day. Those are the issues. But my concern also is that I will prioritize retrieving those monies with possible interest than maybe they going to jail.
Price Hotels is working on that one as well.
So I think because that is more important. I mean, that is more important than throwing 8, 10 people into Insawum and we're losing billions of cedis. That is more important. So, and that is why I think that we don't need to more like hijack the system. Let's allow the receivers to do their work. Let's prioritize recovering those monies with the necessary interest. Let's all help in that regard, because if you look at our debt to GDP ratio that has gone up by about 11 billion cedis, it's largely because of the banking sector intervention in there. This is not lost money. As long as we'll be able to recover these monies and all of that from the system, and it should be possible for us to trace the transaction from end to end and recover those money. That is more important to me than 12 people finding themselves in a certain dark room somewhere.
Let's come to the minimum capital requirement, and we'll be tying in the Ghana cedi issue as well. Minimum capital requirement. When Bank of Ghana said 400 million Ghana cedis, we're all excited. The banks should be capitalized, fresh capital coming in. Earlier this month, the governor said 22 banks have met. It meant that technically about 8 banks were still racing to meet these new capital levels. Let me get your thoughts on how this whole capital requirement issue has been handled from the regulator's perspective, and how the banks themselves have handled it. And now we are hearing lots of developments wrapping up to this whole issue, and we'll be looking at that one as well.
George, this whole recapitalization thing, in fact, linked to the insolvency issues I've gone through, have made certain things clear to us. One is that well-governed indigenous banks are the exception rather than the rule. 2, the poor corporate governance shown by many indigenous banks is actually gets support from the political government of the day, depending on which side of the political divide you're on. It's very unfortunate. Politics has become so overwhelming in Ghana that even it affects the banking industry. There were banks that were supported in some way by the previous government, and different banks which are being supported in some way by the current government. Oh yeah, so it has shown that the fortunes of indigenous banks is often
depending who is occupying the seat at the Flagstaff House.
Exactly. So which effectively means that our political governors are helping to lower standards in the industry. Okay. Government has not been helpful. I support what the Bank of Ghana has done, but government has not been helpful in all of this. I mean, they've not really been helpful. Even this last minute bailout of some
bailout, which has been confirmed actually by my colleagues in
the issue is that the banks have been rewarded for sitting on their hands since September last year. Government will tell you that, okay, look, because MTN swept up all the money in the primary market in the Ghana Stock Exchange, it was difficult for a bank to.
But what was the plan again for these supposed banks in terms of raising capital? I knew a local bank. Let me bring in Prof. Bob Kenneth so we look at this issue of this whole recapitalization. And do you get a sense that for some of these banks, they knew that it's like a student misbehaving on campus, and then he knows that the vice chancellor is my friend, so I would misbehave to the head of department, and I will get away with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Thankfully, it's not University of Ghana.
The premier university.
Yes. So that's very interesting. I think that so many people.
Prof, hold on. I'll do a quick turn to Nana Otuo-Acheampong. He's also a banking consultant. I'll get his views on what is happening right now in the whole banking space with respect to this recapitalization. And I'll come back to my guest in studio here. Nana Otuo-Acheampong, good afternoon. And it'll be a good time to wish you a happy new year and hope that next year will be quite an exciting time for all of us. Let me get your thoughts. The banking sector, we've got into the last lap of the race. We knew that 5 banks. Now we understand there are 6 banks. They were struggling to meet the capital requirement. government is stepping in to bail them out. What do you make of this?
Well, there's an hour to go. 5 p.m. and then the door will be closed. But yes, the governor has said all along that the government said they were ready to assist well-managed local banks that were having difficulty with the capitalization, either to pick it up on their own or in merger with another bank or bank. So it's always been on the table. So this amalgamated trust was put together about 2-3 weeks ago to do that exercise. And since then, they've been talking behind the scenes with some of those who want to access that fund. I believe it's about $2 billion that's used to assist those who want to capitalize, but they are short. So that's really what the whole thing is about. And it's good because the government will be keeping to its pledge not to put depositors' funds at risk. So the 5 or 6 banks will be assisted to achieve their objective.
But Nana, I knew about this, and I knew that as at Friday night, there was a discussion that went deep into the night in the Flagstaff House on this one. But some are saying that what kept government so long that let's the last minute thing, if they really wanted to help these banks to recapitalize, they had a whole year to do that. Now, some are saying that you are rewarding banks who were not doing things right because there's a regulatory requirement. Nana, just a second. There was a regulatory requirement. They failed to meet it. And more of a fiat or a spite in the face of the Bank of Ghana?
Yeah, no, it's not that they're taking their too long. What happened, and you know very well, was that each bank was asked to bring their recapitalization plan. So that plan was to see how they will be able to raise the funds. Now, some of them were looking for foreign investors, looking for mergers and acquisitions, but as a backstop, the government assistance was always there, and that's why, as recent as 2-3 weeks ago, they put it in motion that those who made the effort but still cannot achieve it in one way or the other, because there's nothing like free lunch. So while they wanted investors, sometimes the conditions attached were such that the talks get fed through because they have so much conditions attached to giving you a PESWA or a CD for your bank. So I think it's, the timing is as good as ever.
Would it come with, and again, a lot of scenarios are being put forward here, would it come with some requirement where government will still have a stake in these banks?
Oh, well, even if they have, really the fund that is being used is from the pension fund. So they have to get no objection from the NPR, the regulator, which was one of the sticky issues. Also, once they gave the go-ahead, the trustees were able to put that together, plan together. So really, it's a short-term investment to help them to overcome the recapitalization, and then the money that are given to them, the trustees will have to decide whether they are leaving them long-term or they are going to take them back at a later stage. But one of the things that going forward, all banks should be looking up to is this capital requirement directive. The directive now will be requiring a new method of calculating capital adequacy ratio. And for that purpose, the floor of 400 million is now set, but the ceiling is open, depending on the risk complexities that the bank is involved in. So going forward, every bank will now be extremely careful as to how they distribute or put the money that they have to use. The more risky ones you have, then the more capital that you need to be able to support that, so that we don't get into a situation that banks found themselves in before the 2007-2008 banking crisis. So that's what we call the capital buffer, where every bank should now have enough capital to support the risk that they are taking.
Nana, if this facility was kind of available, why wasn't it again extended to some of the banks that had to go down? Because for some of them, it was clear that they also needed some capital issue.
Yeah, you know the clause that was used, that these are well-managed local banks, and those that went down, or rather the opposite of that, throughout the 7 banks that went down, the problem they had was to do with corporate governance, how they had managed their assets and liabilities, and so on. So I think you have to make a distinction that this is not being given to any. And even one of them, they are ready to go back to SNL status, savings and loan status.
I know that bank as well. But the transfer wasn't coming in today. Sorry, Nana, go ahead.
Yeah, $500,000.
Yeah, you're right on that one, Nana.
They take them out and then they see how it goes. Yeah, so the well-managed banks are being safe as opposed to those that had to go down because the management or governance structures were poor.
Now, let me also find out from you, since you've also been in this space for quite a long time, what is the communication from these banks and then government and also to the Bank of Ghana? So that if, for instance, we close our books today, and I'm doing the audit, I know Banking Submission very busy right now, how would I classify these 5 banks or 6 banks? Have they met the capital requirement, or you've had a commitment, a paper being issued from government to BOG that I will make up for that shortfall?
No. I said earlier, you got an hour to go. And that hour, once it's right, once that hour right, then all those that would have met the conditions will be those that Bank of Ghana, maybe next week, from Tuesday onwards, we'll be talking about, Wednesday onwards, we'll be talking about. So these ones that are in talk, this is an issue of money. So these monies, if they are coming from pension trustees and so on, are certified money. And so if they're able to show that the trustees have agreed that they will release this sort of money, then they have recapitalized and there will be no problem. So I don't think there's much to.
Now, before I let you go, finally, your outlook for you, since we are having you on the phone, I'll quickly get your outlook. Going into 2018, are you that optimistic? Or some are saying that these problems will come back again?
No. I have hope in the new BAFA Passes 2-3 that are being put in place. And they should be able to assist in ensuring that Bank of Ghana never comes back, as happens in other jurisdictions, to be requesting a minimum capital now going forward. And the minimum capital will automatically be cut through with the CRD, the Capital Requirement Directive, because that's what you are using for your system. But it employs a system we call ICAP, which is the internal assessment mechanism for deciding what capital you need to trade with. Or if you take the 22 or 30 banks, each of them has a different level of exposure. And so the regulatory capital is one size fits all. But this type of CRD differentiates between economic and regulatory capital. Your economic activity will decide what sort of capital you need over and above the 400 minimum. And so going forward, you won't be seeing this recapitalization going on unless the implementation of the CRD fails, which I don't think.
Now, I believe in your optimism, and I'll say that time will tell, and we all live to see on that one. Thank you so much, Onoto Acheampong. He's a banking consultant, sharing his thoughts on these banking issues. And I'll be coming to my guest in studio here, Professor Bob King, economist, financial lecturer, Toma Emery. He's also an editor, Gold Street Business. But before I come back to them on what is happening right now, race to recapitalize. We also saw the views of some players in this sector, of course, and Ken Thompson was one of them. And let's hear his thoughts on these whole banking issues and how things have been handled. Let's watch him.
Ghana's economy is largely informal. And the institutions that lend to this informal sector are the non-banks. I can also tell you that over the last 12 months, as usual, I go out and we speak to our people that do business with us. We share our strategy. And there's still some concern. People are concerned. And I hope that the Bank of Ghana moves quickly to deal with the non-bank sector. And I'm glad that Elsie said that before I did, because there's concern. And we can see huge withdrawals. There are people withdrawing their money. Most of them are withdrawing even before the maturity. And I can understand the concerns. I mean, you have credit unions who have put people's life savings in institutions. You have some of the messages not being consistent. And people really are concerned. I mean, the number of people that come to me and say, Mr. Thompson, I have all my money with Dalex Finance is frightening. And I can see the withdrawals. And we've got to remember that no financial institution is able to pay its depositors on demand. It's not possible. Normally, you keep maybe 10% reserve for people that come for their money when it matures, because the money you take, you don't keep it in your bank account. You use it for loans. But that 10% now is being breached. And if we don't manage it, once it gets to a point where people are not getting their money back, they get more worried, and the panic spreads, and everybody's affected. And without a robust financial system, this economy will collapse. And I'm not too worried about the people that go to banks. I'm worried about the wachi seller. I'm worried about the people that sell groundnuts. I'm worried about the cocoa seller, because all those people borrow for business every day. Some of them even pay on the hour. So my take on this will be to say the Bank of Ghana, and I know it's difficult, but it has to be dealt with quickly and decisively, or else we're all in trouble.
And that was Ken Thompson sharing his thought at our financial services discussion that we held earlier this year at Golden Tulip. And expect more, actually, going into 2019. Joy Business and our discussions on the financial sector want to be coming very, very soon. Let me get back, Prof. Bobkin and Tuma Emere, race to recapitalize. Now, there's news just coming, and we knew about this as far back as last week. Something was being put together. But it looks like some of these banks are also suspicious, so they're behind the scenes also trying to raise their own money to see how this thing will be worked out and closed. Bobkin, Prof, some are saying that, and some are saying that we are rewarding inefficiency, because I knew that, and you're making a point that the VC, as my friend, head of department, will give deadline for submitting long essays. I will flout it because I know that VC will step in and save me.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. I think that for some of these banks that have survived up to today, already suggests that they've been doing something slightly different from those that have gone under the water, and therefore perhaps they are alive to meet this intervention. Let me put it that way. I want to also believe that these indigenous banks, this won't be their first resort. This is almost like the last resort. They would prefer to be the 100% owner of that pie, rather than perhaps, because this will also have ownership implications and all of that, management and all of that. So I want to believe that apart from that, I think that there is also that fear that if these indigenous banks didn't make it and perhaps had to fold up, it's going to create a whole lot of political risk and all of that, employment, job losses.
Those issues came in the discussions, we understand the facts.
Yes, and all of that. Remember, even with UT Bank and Capital Bank, others felt that the government could have done something about it, and then all of that. The same thing with what Obama also went through with Lehman Brothers. They felt that, they could have acted a little and all of that. You see, because of the critical role that the banking industry plays, sometimes the level of intervention there may be slightly different from what it will happen with other industries and all of that, because you need a very robust banking industry, a very liquid banking industry, to support the overall government economic strategy. That is not happening now. You can see that at the macro level, the fiscal side, government is doing so well and all of that, but the economy is not getting the much needed support from the financial sector. And I don't want to restrict it only to the banking sector, because the essence of money is that money goes round and round and round and round. But this time around, money is not going round. Money is held, stuck somewhere along the line. It's in itself not helping in terms of credit creation and all of that. Even when we talked about consolidated bank that we talked about, I mean, people are having difficulties accessing their money and all of that.
Whether those bonds that were issued are liquid
and all of that. Yeah, so what it means is that in terms of money going around from one person to the other and all of that, it's not happening. So there's a lot that we are losing because of those challenges. Even when you talk about men's gold and all of that.
We'll be getting to men's gold as well.
Okay, so let's hold that
again,
constant.
we are still sieving through the fine details of this, and you are a finance person. I'll be coming to you, Bob Kuna. So we are hearing that, again, pension funds are kind of being used here and there. And I need to be educated in this space. But my money, again, if these banks were managed well, and it's not just a sentimental argument about, local banks against foreign banks, some would have said they wouldn't have gotten into this space. I knew at a point in time, Senate wanted to put together the banks that it has interest. Politically, it was fought. So I have issues with the fact that pension funds are being used. And if it's right, and again, I stand to be educated, I have issues with that one, Prof.
So pension...
I'll come to you, Thomas.
Yes. Already, whatever contributions we have made in that sector, we have handed it over to certain trustees or people to manage it on our behalf. My understanding is that they've done the analysis and they believe that it's ultimately in the best interest of workers, and that is why they are doing that going forward. So that is how I'll look at it from that particular point of view. But I also want to know that money doesn't come free. It's still very early for us to pass certain judgment, especially as an academic. You want to be able to have the full facts to be able to do your analysis. So perhaps we would want to look at the terms under which these interventions are coming to these banks. Then we'll be able to assess. But let me say that if you look at Ghana's banking industry overall, I mean, it still has potential to grow. And therefore, if you invest in that sector and it comes along with good governance practices and all of that, you will be getting good returns. It's one of the lucrative industries, even regardless of the challenges that we have gone through.
After all, they have high rates, of course.
We went through all of this largely because of bad management practices, aided significantly by some shareholders in some of the banks who should have perhaps done better. And in putting the right corporate governance arrangement and all of that. The issue is not just putting those arrangements, but you have to respect them and
again,
all those things. So I think that the industry is still quite lucrative, and I want to believe that it has come at a time where it will go with a lot of restructuring. And the reason I'm saying so is that even though we are talking about all these things, the central bank will have to reform, because the kind of assessment they were doing under the previous regime, for which many of these banks had the leeway to do all these things, if they continue along those same paths, it will not be long, and then we will mess up at very soon. So these are, but I want to believe that there are sufficient measures that they are putting in place to ensure. If these banks wanted to grow, they would have, because once they passed that act, the Banks and Specialized Deposit-Taking Institutions Act 2016, Act 930, I think, and all of that. Obviously, we knew that there needed to be a scaling up of the minimum capital and all of that. But these banks failed to plan with the act and all of that. Then you could see those shareholders were taking their, instead of plowing back the profit to grow the bank, they were not doing so. They were using some of the profits maybe to run their parties, or maybe to set up other businesses and all of that. Then scattered the attention so much that at the end of the day, they were exposed.
I'll see whether I can get my producer to roll this one again on the screen. Then a lot of documents and a lot of things are indeed flying around, depending on where you're getting it from and all the rest. And I'll get back to you whether for you think it's a good thing or not, and I'll see whether she can do that for you. But again, what again we are picking up is that it will be a 2 billion, around that 2.2 billion dollar special purpose vehicle. Yeah. That is the Ghana Amalgamated Vehicle, SPV. That is, or whatever, a special purpose vehicle, sorry, and that will be the Ghana Amalgamated Trust Limited, which government incorporated on December 17th. There were discussions around that time again, and we can confirm that one. The SPV is supposed to mobilize funds through the issuance of bonds that will be sold to both domestic and foreign markets. One, the source involved adds that it is structured as the last-minute bailout package. It said, it added that the bond is partially guaranteed by government to make it, quote, sweetener and comfortable to investors. Lots of technical jargons and all the rest, but the clear thing is that more of a bond to be issued again and serve my layman's word, all these things can even be classified as a bailout or not.
Or maybe once they are using the special purpose vehicle, perhaps in their mind, it won't be added to the debt stock.
So Prof, I mean, for you, wrapping up on this, I'll come to for you. Yeah. So for you, do you think it's a good thing?
Well, I think that, George, is where we find ourselves. It's like you have compliance that is born out of necessity rather than love, because we don't have a lot of options. The clock has been taken, I mean, and we just have some few hours and all of that. So I think at the end of the day, I would say that it's a good intervention to resolve the uncertainty and all of that, and to also restore confidence in the banking industry. And my understanding is that even though some people think that this is the right time, I think this should have been done a couple of maybe weeks ago, because we don't need to come to 31st December 2018 only to know that, hey, now this is the package that is out there. I mean, a lot of damage would have been done to a customer confidence in some of these banks, panic withdrawal and all of that. So we did
some of the banks, let's talk about even GHL and First National Bank. They were not comfortable with the information getting out because the fear was that it could trigger a panic withdrawal. If, for instance, I don't like First National Bank, then I'll go out there and move my money. But Thomas, let me bring you in about the signal that it sends again. And depending on where you are standing, different interpretations being put on this. Some are saying it's a spite in the face of Bank of Ghana. Some are saying that this is what the whole political economy is about. There was a similar structure in US. The US government came in, they built out these banks, they made their money, they paid back. So for those who might be complaining about this and raising red flags, it's more of much I do about nothing.
Let's remember that this is not the first time Ghana has done this thing. In the 1980s, the World Bank and the government of Ghana created FinTrust to bail out. And that was the case of insolvency. This is a case of capital, minimum capital. So it's not a case now of, so you can't actually call it a bailout. This is not a case of government bringing money to save banks which were about to go under. It's a case of banks that were basically okay, but they have been required to increase their capital, and they don't immediately have access to enough capital to meet the new minimum. So it's not like it's a banks that have failed. The banks are okay, but they've been asked to increase their capital base, and they are not in a position to do it.
Is it not because we put always a negative spin on the word bailout? Because if some financial arrangement is being put together to help you deal with something, whatever you might choose to call it.
A bailout connotes a bank in difficulty, which is being taken out of the difficulty. In this case, it's simply a matter of the bank is not, I mean, if you look at all the ratios, they're okay. It's just that they've been asked to come up to a new minimum capital level, which they were not able to do. And that is my problem with the whole thing.
Let me bring you the bit about the signal again that it sends across regulatory issue, who would have the final say, who would have the final dance, and who would have that final glass of water, or whether it's alcohol or it's wine that would drink and say, cheers, I have sailed through.
Well, the thing is this, George. Look, the Bank of Ghana has not shifted from its position. The Bank of Ghana said from the beginning that this is the new minimum. Come December 31st, if you have not met the new minimum, you are out. Bank of Ghana has not changed from its position. It is government once again that has now stepped in on its own to provide the money. The money being provided to the banks, it does not involve Bank of Ghana. That's between government and the said banks. You understand? What Bank of Ghana is concerned about is that come midnight December or close of work today, December 31st, if you have not met the new minimum, you have your license revoked. government has come in to ensure that that does not happen to those 6 banks. Of course, what Bank of Ghana's concern is to make sure that the money coming in is genuine. It's not from money laundering or terrorist money or something, which of course is not. It's money coming from government. So Bank of Ghana is okay, and Bank of Ghana says, well, okay. So the Bank of Ghana here, in this case, it's not like I'm trying to sound like the defense lawyer for Bank of Ghana, but Bank of Ghana has not gone
they
wrong.
They seem to have found a special place in your heart.
No, hold on. There are places where Bank of Ghana, there are places where I'll be very happy to blame Bank of Ghana, but not in this case. In this case, banks have come and said, okay, look, guys, we have the money. And Bank of Ghana said, okay, you have the money, fine. Where did you get the money from? From government. So what Bank of Ghana going to say? Will Bank of Ghana say, oh, because it's from government, we will not agree? I mean, they can't do that.
No. I mean, that's certainly not.
Prof, let me bring you in. I mean, some would say, and you play in the economic space as well, that it is always about the political economy, and that would always take precedence over whatever regulatory issues that would happen in any space that you find yourself.
Yeah. It's not unique to Ghana alone. You'll find it across a number of countries as well. But I think how we use it is very, very important to support business and all of that. That is more important and all of that. But I'll come back to the same thing. I think that the last 24 months or so, the central bank has acted and acted quite swiftly. It hasn't been a soft decision. It hasn't been easy for them and all of that. If you look at the criticism, especially, and these are local banks, and the drive to preserve indigenous banks, local content within the banking industry, and all of that, we are such that sometimes we need to make certain sacrifices, lower the belt a bit in order to accommodate ourselves. These are local banks. These are Ghanaian banks. If they do it well and they make profit, it stays here, which is very, very good. I'm happy to the extent that, and I wasn't happy initially when people were just flying from airport to here looking for capital. Let's look within, so that if we are able to get a capital from within, put in place the right corporate governance measures, and the central bank does its work, supervision and all of that very, very well. Whatever profit they make, it stays here, and which is very good for our economy. Because if you see the extent of foreign ownership in our economy and the effect even towards the financial end and all of that, it hasn't been that supportive.
What would you tell those who would say that the ends justify the means? And Toma, some would say that the way things are ending, in terms of regulatory issues as well, would it have been done better?
No, I will support that assertion here on one basis. You read the financial stability reports that the Bank of Ghana issues from now and again. The incident of loan repayment defaults that occur in Ghana, the incidence is far, far, far higher among local enterprises than among foreign enterprises. Now, who lends to the local enterprises? It's the local banks.
Yes.
The fact that without the local banks, the foreign banks will look at the loan records of these local enterprises and they will not get any credit.
But the chunk of that loan is coming from government. Government actually, when you do the proper due diligence on these numbers, NPLs, it's exposure to government.
There's a certain level of...
No, but I'm talking about private enterprise now. I'm talking about private enterprise outside state-owned enterprise. I'm talking about privately owned private enterprise. Still, the loan default incidence is much higher in local, privately owned companies.
If you look at the asset composition of some of these banks, especially the foreign banks, they are comfortable to do the big ticket transaction in oil and gas. I hope you understand that. Issue LC for importation of fuel and all of that. And they make huge margins than dealing with local mere mortals. Let me put it that way and all of that. So I think that is why
who tend not to pay their loans when they do get them.
So if you look at also our SMEs are not that attractive to these foreign banks. These are these same local banks that we understand ourselves. And therefore, if we have to sacrifice and make certain interventions to meet them halfway, I think that is very good. That's why I say it's still early because we have to be able to understand the terms under which these interventions are going to be made and then the necessary.
So no, hold on, I'll come back. So for you, it looks like there wouldn't be any casualty based on this arrangement.
It looks like they've scaled the wall.
It had to happen. I mean, we were expecting it and just had to happen.
And so nothing would happen. Quickly, as we wrap up on this, and let's do the men's gold issue as well.
One quick thing. Remember, just try to think like the political class. Remember, we are considering all the issues that might eventually result out of this solution of common
The
code.
political,
Those are for the future. The problem that will have been created on December 31st at the close of work has been solved. Whatever problems will come later. Now all the guys in charge can go to church tonight and go and thank God, after which they can go and have fun without having any particular worries.
It's not only for the bank managers, but for the customers,
for the customer,
the depositors, and all of that.
All
so
the uncertainties and worries have been pushed forward.
It's good that we've been able to scale that toward. That is why I said that this should have been announced much earlier, and all of that. We don't have to wait till almost the last minute to come out with this. Some would have suffered some all kinds of things before, but I think it's still good that it has happened. I understand your concern. I share with your concern in terms of that intervention, whether we are rewarding inefficiency or all of that. But the understanding is that these banks have stayed up to today because they've been doing certain things right, and the government has signaled that they will support indigenous banks.
And they will not insolvent.
And it will have implications. I beg to differ whether they were doing all things right, and I would want to move away. I want to move away from the sentimental issue, because I would always bring up the SSNIT argument where at a point in time they wanted to create a strong local bank, and that idea was put forward. So for me, it's not about whether it is local or foreign. I believe that there have been several attempts to put together strong local banks, which some of these individual banks have fought because of their political connections, and they still want to be MDs of these banks.
Yeah, George, I agree with you. We are in crisis time, and therefore the interventions may not fit all the boxes, but something has to be done. That is how I see it going forward. But look, it's too early to smile, because if you look at the entire financial market, we have a lot of unresolved issues. So far, we are just focusing on the banking industry. We haven't talked about the microfinance sector. We haven't talked about savings and loans. Beyond that, we are yet to come to the capital market, investment companies, and all of that.
And for the banks who are smiling now, risk-based capital, depending on your exposure, you are supposed to again up your capital again. Otherwise, you cannot play in certain space that will bring you the profit.
Precisely. It would encourage them to take risk, and that is where the risk-based capital prescription is also important. This is not strange. If you go back to that act right from 2016 when it was passed, I mean, you see all these things there. Automatically, we knew that these are the implications, and banks needed to prepare. But I'm not too sure whether the banks, some of these local banks, fully incorporated the provisions of the act from day one. And so, because if you look at when perhaps they thought that at the beginning the central bank wasn't that serious with the deadline, but when they realized that the central bank was very serious, the time was also too short even to talk about serious mergers and acquisitions. Which merger and acquisition can you discuss over a 3-month period?
But Prof, in that case, why was it that two banks, having decided this was the situation, they couldn't do the MIAs because of time? But finally, when they realized Bank of Ghana was not going to change the deadline, they actually started merger talk in December. Just a couple of weeks ago.
Let's rate how the Bank of Ghana.
I hope you are not going to shoot me down.
I'm not going to start. I'm supposed to be an independent person here, so my views doesn't matter.
Yes. All right.
I'm angry at the way certain things are.
We'll score for you.
Let's first look at how the Bank of Ghana handled the 5 banks that actually went down. Toma, green means what? Going ahead, yes. You thought it was okay.
Yes.
Toma?
It was okay as a stopgap solution.
I still think that approach could have been a little bit different. Maybe still have the banks there and even just change the management and all those things.
They were insolvent.
One or two banks.
They were living on emergency liquidity assistance.
Let's look at government intervention on these banks that are said to be going this. I give a red down. I have issues with that one, of course. It wasn't just today that these banks were told to recapitalize. Yeah. There were banks that had partners coming in to actually give them lots of dollars to recapitalize. They turned it down. There were an attempt by SSNIT to put together these
because you didn't want to dilute the ownership.
Turned down. Some are saying that suppose a special purpose vehicle for these 6 banks. Now we understand. I'm not supposed to have a view, but I'm giving a red down on this one, Prof.
I will do this.
I go sideways. I go sideways because there are pros and cons to the whole thing. You know, I mean, look, yeah, it has solved an immediate problem facing us, but I also, just like you, I have my worries about rewarding the local owners for, I mean, the clear fact that they have managed the thing, they have managed their institutions poorly because of their personal financial desires. And they are still looking for ways to maintain the authority to do such into the future. But they don't, that's why they don't want to dilute their ownership stakes, relying on government to eventually bail them out, which is what government has now done. The other side of it, what I have hope in is that the Bank of Ghana has come up with certain directives that will now tie their hands against the worst forms of ownership malfeasance.
Let me also give reasons why I'll do this, because I think that the system is working again with what the central bank is doing. The central bank is leading quite strongly. In the last couple of months, we've seen that. And I also think that there is the need to preserve the local content in the economy. There's the need to support the local banks and all of that. But also, if you look at the arrangement in terms of the special purpose vehicle and all of that, it's not like free money they are just giving to these banks and all of that. Ultimately, it's going to have implication for the ownership structure of these banks, and that ultimately will also have implication for managerial, top managerial, the board and all of that. And once Bank of Ghana keeps on enforcing those directives that they are coming out with and all of that. Look, if you look at under Basel I, Basel II, and even the Act, once the central bank central bank is diligent in terms of its own assessment and all of that, and they also need to scale up capacity in terms of risk management department of the central bank and all of that, because hey, you only, I mean, if you get onto the ground and some of these bank managers or employees know a lot more even than people coming from the central bank. Really, what is the point and all of that? So in terms of risk management and all of that, we need to scale up in terms of capacity building and all of that. And then we all build an economy that we can all participate in fully.
Let's look at gold dealership firm mainstream. Is it an exposure of regulation in this country, or the regulators are not being innovative, or clearly there were issues with this scheme and that was all?
It was just a very bold effort at Piram.
I mean, really?
Just a bold, I mean, the guys came out very bold, but at the end of the day, it boiled down to a Piram scheme.
But
look,
that's a failure
George,
again on
George,
regulation.
George. Oh, but you agree it was a Piram scheme, right?
I mean, well,
you agree, first of all. Not could be, it's obvious. Now, it has been as obvious as daylight. There was a Piram scheme. Now, where the failure of regulation came was that the regulators knew it was a Piram scheme.
So why didn't they stop it at the initial stage?
Exactly. So the question is, was it because the laws were not in place?
Coming from
or what?
because
Bank of Ghana has been taking on these guys for years, and the guys boldly been telling Bank of Ghana to go to hell. To the extent the Bank of Ghana now scurries back and goes to call SEC. That pay, come and help us. We can't control these guys. So SEC now has to now come.
There were Minerals Commission, and at a point in time, let me share my personal experience in trying to even get all those regulators that matter to tell me, give me the clear line what is happening. Everybody was like, "Why are you worried, putting pressure on us?" And that was where my problem said, okay, if these guys are indeed operating a pyramid scheme or whatever, speak, tell me. And everybody was.
But it was complicated, George. You had celebrities coming out to support.
Isn't it a failure on those who are supposed to protect us, you and I?
The
people did not want to be protected. That was part of the problem. The people you are trying to protect were now pointing fingers at the regulator and saying the regulators are preventing them from making money. I mean, we all saw what happened when the so-called celebrities were coming out. I hope those guys, they've lost all their money. Because it's
so this is how I see it. I think that they might have found a space in terms of the regulatory environment that they decided to take advantage of.
But they said it openly. That was the situation.
And when you look at it critically, you will see that the way the financial market is segmented by way of regulation, it is possible to identify regulatory arbitrage in the system. Sandwich between Bank of Ghana and Securities and Exchange Commission.
Deposit versus investment.
And all
there
of
was
that.
a regulators forum.
Well, no, we don't have it as strong as what we have in others. I know currently there's something going on at the Ministry of Finance in terms of harmonizing to address these regulatory gaps and all of that. But don't forget, in this country, things just don't happen accidentally. It is possible that behind the scenes there were very powerful people behind this Men's Gold, for which reason it was very difficult for a single regulator to actually move in quite strongly and do what has to be done. George. Don't rule that out. What you saw playing out in the banking industry with how some people were able to get banking licenses even without all the money and all of that, don't be surprised. The only thing that perhaps we say we can't do is to get God's signature in this country and all of that immediately and
so
do whatever we want to do.
We can create everything. Just like one person said that Kwame Nkrumah could have done everything with the exception of creation of a man and a woman. So powerful.
And all of that. So, you see, we have a problem. And the problem also is that, you see, it's not sufficient to blame it on regulation. You know, if you look at some of the people who we have heard have invested in Men's Gold and all of that, you realize that we are just driven also by greed. You can't take that out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised that when all these things were going on, you had banks that said that were invested there, people who took actually fixed deposits to invest in this institution.
I don't think that it would be good for us to even call them investors. I wouldn't go strongly along the line that people were staking lotto with their money. With that kind of return and all of that, I mean, you could not be considered to be an investor. The average investor is known to be risk averse, largely risk averse and all of that. But they were just taking excessive risk, and this is exactly what has happened, and this is what they have asked for. The level of financial literacy is also low. Having the knowledge, and in itself, but having the knowledge is one thing, and being transformed.
On what you define as knowledge, because again,
I'm coming. Financial literacy
shows that these are
financial
people
literacy
who play in the financial space.
I'm coming. Financial literacy has two components. There's one, the knowledge, and being transformed by that knowledge.
So accountants, bankers.
Do you know something? You may be the
you tell us.
You may be
very from the banks and the way we have in the lecture
that is
rooms.
fine. You see, the point is that it comes to date. Very basic in terms of investment diversification. That you could hear that somebody will put all that he had in Men's Gold. Certainly, clearly. What is that supposed to tell you? And all of that. So I think that you can see in terms of regulation, we haven't done quite well. It's also playing out in there. You can also see the individual customers in terms of their posture and all of that. Look, you want to place money with a certain company. You want to do certain basic due diligence.
No, but that was,
and all of that.
That's where the issue was.
Yeah, and these people were okay. They were okay largely because why? It doesn't matter the underlying asset. It doesn't matter whether they were being regulated or not, and all of that.
Who knew what it was?
So we just kept going and going and going. But you see, of course, the political economy, fine. The interconnectedness and all of that. You find
what he has said, the Prof was saying, is the precise issue. The issue is this. Look, everybody has a right to take whatever risk he wants to take concerning how he spends his money. All right? We know that there's a correlation between risk and reward. Some people want to be very, very conservative to just invest in treasury bills. Some guys will take all kinds of risks. But the issue is this. One thing that regulation must ensure is that the investor must be given the requisite information to be able to judge the amount of risk he is taking. At the point where Men's Gold refused to divulge its business model, that was the time that they should have been closed down.
And
because how can you have an institution taking investment from the public and refuses to tell the public how it's making those
they said they were doing good trading. Have we?
But they now said, okay, when Paul Ghana said explain exactly how it, and SEC said, okay, how does it work? They said no, it's a trade secret.
So that's the issue.
At that stage, they should have barred them from doing anything.
One key requirement for the market to be efficient is that every financial market participant ought to meet some minimum financial literacy standard. It's very, very important. And you see, Men's Gold would have responded to to whatever pressure that was coming from their own customers. If they are asking whether you are regulated, why won't you submit to this and all of that? They will. The point was that they had an incentive to do all these things, and that is what has happened. And the whether you are risk-averse chicken or you are venturesome lion, you are taking risk with your money.
Is the chapter closed or not on this men's code issue? Because there are still customers who are demanding their money.
I think
we've still not heard from the company.
The owners they should be forced to sell their assets and pay back.
That's what let's rate, because I am still not clear about what is next on this men's code issue.
So what are we rating? Is it the regulatory this or is it men's code?
Let's first look at the regulatory actions of it. I thought that it could have been handled better than what has been done.
They did the right
why
thing,
didn't they come in earlier to take
it.
action on the men's code issue? And therefore, I'm still watching that space in terms of what the regulators would do and how would those investors get their monies back and what is going to happen to that company going forward. So I'm still watching that space.
I'm also watching that space.
I give them the thumbs up, the regulators, because they were fighting against the masses. And look, even in the newspaper where I was, one of my reporters wrote this long feature defending men's gold and blaming Bank of Ghana for preventing people from earning very good returns on their money. A reporter in the place, and honestly, at that stage, I would, if I had my, I would have sacked it.
For people took an ignorant position on these things, which was not.
Imagine a financial journalist working on Bambi was insisting that men's gold was genuine, and Bank of Ghana, for some political reason or the other, was trying to prevent people from making money.
We were envying the returns that they were getting.
Exactly.
And for me, I thought that people draw the line between an individual doing his work, being an indigent, fine, and also ensuring that we have the rules of the game. And if you want to play in that space, let's abide by the rules. Clear. So anybody who sought, or some of us who commented on this issue, wasn't because we are trying to kill a local business. No. It was about the fact that when it came to that space, there were rules. And if you want to play in that space, abide by the rules clearly.
In fact, the reason we came in at some point in time, for me, was the fact that it was too risky for a business to say, we don't want to be regulated. Look, submitting to regulation is a sound business strategy to have in the first place.
They even refuse to divulge their business model.
Because you needed to explain the underlying.
How they use the money, they refuse to say.
For instance, we are asking for a certain level of intervention from the government. How do we expect the government to come in now? To assume the liabilities or what? I think
but the Bank of Ghana don't want everybody not to invest in the place. Anybody
there has been sufficient information.
Finally, have we learned our lessons? Because I remember Piram, I remember I've forgotten the other name, DKM,
we have
and all the rest.
Have
we learned our lessons?
Will not allow us
still, it will come back again.
It will come back again.
Okay, let's move on. We'll be doing the CD as well, but let's come to another critical issue as well. One district, one factory, one constituency, whatever you can talk about, all those things. Let's look at how you rate this initiative by government and whether it's being implemented very well. The fact that we want to move into an industrialized economy and ensure that these factories are established at strategic locations and we have a plan to ensure that we produce what we consume, I think it's a good initiative. I would give it a gold on that one. But I still have issues with how we are fine-tuning the whole policy to ensure that we really benefit from this as an economy. So gold on that one. Gold.
Like, I'm the odd one.
Okay.
But I'm sure it's issues with implementation, not the concept.
When it comes to the
sustainability.
The laws, we have one of the final laws.
And sustainability.
Again, yeah.
And I can see that government is refining its approach gradually and all of that in terms of inviting in the private sector and all of that. I think that's the way. When was the last time Ghana government really managed something so successful over a certain period of time? Those are the issues. And I think that we have to be able to allow the market, the investors and all of that to come in. Government should create the necessary
We'll be looking at the connection again of this with the Ghana cedi as well, and maybe it might be a good time to try and look at this as well, just quickly on the Ghana cedi and the connection, because it looks like we won't get away from this space as in the flip-flop with the Ghana cedi, and this whole thing about even hitting 5 cedi, Bank of Ghana will come in and all the rest. We look at the numbers and sometimes people would want to question these numbers, because if at the macro level everything is good, inflation is stable, our exports are good, why is it not impacting on the local currency?
Simple. Because we have relied too much on external investors for our financing. As Prof pointed out, look, for the first time, we've had I think 9 consecutive, since the last quarter of 2016, you've had a trade surplus, a merchandise trade surplus, consecutively since the last quarter of 2016. So that is a positive, which means the city should be appreciated. But the services thing is good.
I remember when some would say, and I don't know about the chi, that inflation here be. If inflation is coming down, if inflation is stabilizing,
so John,
I want that to impact on the cost of credit.
What is going on?
I want that to impact on my pocket.
What is going on is simply that people there's capital flight. We've relied on foreign investment for our no, I'm not about direct foreign investment. I'm talking about portfolio investment. All right, especially for government's debt. All right, to the extent that 1/3 of what you call your domestic debt is actually foreign debt.
Let me just get Popkin just a few minutes and let's move on with that on the whole thing about the Ghana cedi and how we ensure that the stability is sustained. Just a few minutes on that one.
I think that it could have been worse, but I think that we also have to acknowledge government strategy and also the central bank, what they've done. If you look at it relative to maybe what has happened in the time past and all of that, you can see that it's not that bad. Because look, even if we did everything right, we still expect that the cedi will depreciate by a certain percentage annually to correct for in terms of the relative size of our economy and the major economics that we trade with and all of the inflation differentials, interest rate differentials and all of that. Those things are still there. So I think that it's not the worst scenario for us going forward. And then again, it comes to in terms of the excessive foreign dominance in our economy. That also is not helping. We are hugely import dependent, whether we like it or not. I mean, but of course we are thinking about planting for food and jobs. That should also help and all of that. We are still importing hugely and all of that. In fact, studies have shown that more than 70% of business input costs in this country is imported. That's very huge. The debt management strategy that we have also implemented, he talked about in the last couple of years, even though we've done more domestic issuance, we've opened it up to foreign investors through the book building process. That itself is also playing out. And then you expect that as the U.S. economy is strengthening and securities are becoming a little bit more attractive in those countries,
interest rates are going up.
There are investors that are seeking early redemption of their investment in cedi-denominated assets here, and as they are exiting, even though it's cedi-denominated, when they are exiting, they will need dollars to go. And our market is so shallow. A $20 million request can change the market price. So it's not that deep.
So let's hope and see what will happen next year. Let's come to the creation of these new districts as well, and the regions, and the implications on the one district, one factory. Don't worry, and the implications of this one on the economy as well.
Well, I think that we were here and trying to say that the people, we don't need it. But the results from the referendum actually suggest that this is what the people are asking for. If you look at the overwhelming support for the creation of those regions. And I think that is what development is also about, because what you may call development here may be different from how the local people see it and all of that. That is very, very important. I think that in the immediate, they are likely to see certain things called development in terms of administrative structures for these new regions, regional capital, coordinating centers, and all of that. Of course, there will be some local jobs for some of the local people and all of that. It also opens up the country in terms of for internal tourism and all of that. But of course, it's going to come at a cost. And others have argued whether this is whether it's worth it and all of that. But I think that given the fact that we have embraced democracy, and we should be able to respect people's views and what they want for themselves, and the fact that per our own constitution or so, is the people that are affected that should decide. And they have decided that this is what they want.
Let's try and iterate about this whole decision and its economic implications, creation of new regions. What will be your rating on it as well?
I will still do my
I am still watching and looking at the
George, the fact is that the closer the seat of government is in a region to the people, the more the government will be sensitive to the peculiar needs of the people.
And decentralization, because irrespective of where you are.
This is also part of decentralization.
It's part of
we are moving to the next phase of the decentralization, where we are going to elect.
Now, if water is the immediate problem of the people in the northern part of the western region, for example, they are more likely to get water than to get something which was of less importance to them.
Even though it's very difficult to link these creations and this to poverty reduction and all of that, even in terms of theory and empirical evidence and all of that. I think that it's a decision that the people have made, that they want these regions and all of that. Let's respect them. That's what
99% we can't begrudge them. I mean,
we can't sit here and decide for them. The people who need to decide for themselves have decided for themselves.
The port is becoming a real playground for governments when they come. There's now a new thing, Unipass as well. Let's rate it as well. What do you
Unipass?
Like, all other things being equal, it will take off from next year. I find it very interesting. If all the other stakeholders and what they are saying is anything to go by, I'm still watching that space.
Neither here or there, because I haven't followed it fully. There isn't sufficient argument for and against and all of that, and for that reason, it's very difficult for me.
That's why I'm against it. That's why I'm against it. I just don't see. Nobody has been able to tell me one single reason why single window should be replaced with Unipass. That's my issue.
Let's take a short, quick break and we'll be right back as we try and on our review for the year 2018. And welcome to our 2018 year in review. How would you describe 2018 if you were a businessman, interesting, surprising, or quite a challenging one? Let's now go on to our lines and connect with Charles Ayitey, who's also been asking people all around town and what do they make of 2018 as we cross over to 2019. While we are at the, let's also hear from some industry. We hear from some industry leaders and others, but let's connect with Charles Ayitey, who's on our ground, man on our ground. Charles, come in, Charles.
Hello, George. So if you hear me quite clearly, we're currently at the Osu Oxford Street, where we have been sampling the views of some Ghanaians and even expatriates on what they think has been the challenge for them in the economic year of 2018. It has been a very interesting experience, getting to find most of them right. Well, it's bothering them on their minds on the very feasibility board that we have stationed here just in front.
So we're trying to get the link up with our man, Charles Ayitey, on the ground, who has been engaging him about the issues for the outlook for the year as well in 2018. So let's try and quickly round up on this as well as we move into 2019. What are some of the things we should be watching, keeping the close eye on?
Government is going to drive a lot of economic activity. They have signaled that already in the 2019 budget, so we should be looking forward to that. It also means business for the private sector, because the government, once government decides to spend in the right way, it's also good in stimulating economic activity. Monetary policy has been very supportive, and I expect that will continue. And if possible, next year, we should be able to ease the policy rate a bit, slightly, in 2019. So that is also going to be there. We expect that the banking sector would pick up a bit in terms of lending, deposit activity and all of that. Now that we've seen those banks that have scaled the wall, that is quite good. There's still a lot that has to be done in the financial sector in terms of microfinance, in terms of savings and loans and all of that. And therefore, government should not ignore that sector totally, because so far all the intervention have been directed at the banking sector specifically. But the financial market is much broader and all of that.
Thomas, have we forgotten about rural banks, microfinance, and then savings? It looks like in all these discussions and all the things that we are doing, we've forgotten about them. But they play a critical role in the economy.
In fact, in terms of the rural economy, they are very critical.
Yeah, in a much bigger mess, even than the universal banking sector. Okay. Now, the thing is this. You see, they deal with a lot more people. But why government is addressing the banking sector first is that in terms of actual quantum of money involved is the banking sector. But if you add all the microfinance institutions, savings and loans, and rural community banks, you are talking of less than 15% of total financial intermediation in Ghana. But they deal with more people, but smaller people. So government has decided to address the 85% before focusing on the 15%. Because in terms of the actual amount of money required to solve the problems. Government has, for example, started paying off all the microfinance depositors who had money genuinely with duly licensed microfinance institutions, not like those fund clubs in Bronga Hafo but the ones which were duly licensed by Bank of Ghana, like DKM and Co. Government has agreed to pay. They've started paying off all of them, starting with DKM depositors. All right, and they're going. I think they want to go systematically across all these things. At the end of the day, even though these institutions are dealing with so many people, in terms of actual volume of funds, it's less than a quarter of what the banking.
Yeah, what I was also suggesting was that by now we should be able to have a comprehensive review report of the microfinance sector, the savings and loans, so we know the extent of the issues, the problems, and then this information should be made available.
The Bank of Ghana has it, but they don't want to make it public because people will panic. The last one they did, when they explained that about 70% of the money, they issued the government about a year ago, Bank of Ghana, less than a year ago, they issued a report saying that about 70%, so I forgot the percentage, but some large amount of money is in jeopardy. Money with microfinance institutions and rural and community banks. And they created a run of sorts on the deposits.
Tom, I'll come back to in covering the year 2018. It wasn't all about the bad news. It wasn't all about those who are going down and all the rest. It's also about those who were racing against the odds to, again, do things that can be described as inspiring. Let's watch this few clip we put together at our desk here about some two women doing things from the Western region.
Rita Akushika Diaba, together with her 4 children and husband, live in the Boadze in the Western region. As a first-time mother and wife, Akushika moved in with her husband in 2008, leaving behind a good-paying job with a Canadian firm. After several failed efforts to find a job and the growing pressures of motherhood, Akushika resorted to be a housewife.
I completed UCC and then got married. And I was working actually in Accra with a Canadian firm as their started as a service personnel, then moved to become the administrator, then the acting country director. But you are married. Your husband is in Takoradi and you are in Tema.
This, however, did not keep her idle as she tried her hands on many products.
I started with few things before.
Like?
I started selling diapers. I've sold diapers, I've sold pepper in a container. No, the real branded pepper, yes.
After several tries, she eventually found her niche, ice cream and juices.
I was like, I really need something that I'll call my own, something that I'll build up. The ice cream that my other neighbor was taking to sell also came in, and I was like, well, since somebody has taken it from you, let me do something that they would rather come to me for than me going to take from somewhere to come and buy. I need to own it. It's my property, my everything. It is mine.
Yesli Ice produces ice cream and fruit juices made from organic fruits and with low sugar content. With some plywood, Akushika has managed to convert her porch into a working area where she produces her ice cream, and her kitchen, the factory for her juices.
14 and a half and 15. 14 and a half.
Ruth is presently assisting her former master and trainer at her shop as she prepares to move into her own shop soon. With a WASI certificate, her parents were hoping she would further her education to one day become a journalist. After her father was laid off from work some 5 years ago, she was forced to find a job as one of the eldest of 7 children. It is then that she was pushed to explore her childhood dreams of becoming a welder.
I'll come forward and ask about it. The master say, "Oh, Babia, why am I fabricated anti ultimate training me? And Tebia Crasuna, ye did in a home Yamiadum or farming."
Young, passionate, and focused on her job, Ruth Madufia is ready to go all lengths to become a master in her profession. However, the story has not been so easy for Ruth as her family tried to prevent her from becoming a welder all because of the strenuous nature of the profession, which they believe was meant for men only.
Well, doing so, yeah, it may be a manager because straight materials, and I say, I can't, and I did straight, then the paper, I'm on measurement. I say, a designing to the certain way, a beautify your environment, and you may be a. You may be a manager due to that, and now they are obeying me. Edward to Tonwa, I desire a beautify if
Ruth loves her work so much that she had to sneak out of home one day to even go to the shop.
So they locked me the other day in the room. I need to pass through the windows when they realize I'm at work. Due to the passion I have for the job, I can't leave it.
And of those clips that you saw, one was actually voted as the most innovative firm in the Ghana Club 100. And also the second one also voted in one of the international medias being classified or classified here as BBC actually classified her as one of the most innovative women when it comes to entrepreneurs in Africa. Of course, interesting views that tells you that it's not all about the bad news, also some good news going down there in the year 2018. And this infrastructure has got a lot of people talking. T3.
The Terminal 3 of the Kotoka International Airport is highly operational. You could see passengers being cleared out in the departure section of the terminal. But we get to speak to the managing director of the Ghana Airports Company Limited to help us understand what this means to him and as well the future that holds for the airline industry here in Ghana. So many thanks for your time here with us, Mr. Atefo. First of all, your initial impressions.
I think I can breathe more easily today. We've since the contractor completed the work in June, we've been working, looking forward to today. We've done everything, simulated all scenarios. We've had 2 major simulations where we put in about 2,000 passengers on each occasion. We evaluated, debriefed, made the necessary corrections, and finally today is here, and everybody is excited about it.
We haven't spoken to the passengers yet, but I believe you may have been getting some feedback so far. How has the feedback been like from passengers?
It's been fantastic. In the initial trials, we gave them some forms to complete and tell us their feelings, and boy, you couldn't get it better. Everybody who's been through here has been very excited about it. Their caution to us is that we should maintain it and keep it as it is, so that they continue to enjoy it. So that is our hope, and we are putting in all the necessary measures to ensure that this airport stays as clean, as neat, and as exciting as it is today. Some of the shops, we still have some shops uncompleted, but it is our hope that by the 2nd of October, when it's officially commissioned, all those shops will be ready.
So interesting thoughts there by my colleague Charles Aite, who spoke to the managing director of the Ghana Airports Company, telling us about this whole infrastructure. That is our new airport that has got a lot of people talking. Nigerians come here and become a big issue in Nigeria as in what Ghana has been able to do. And once it was said, if you educate a man, you educate an individual. If you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. I hope I got that line right. You could see those 2 women entrepreneurs and
very
what they're doing. Yeah,
very inspiring. And I think it's also good because, especially not to downplay the first one with BBC covering that on the stage, I think is very good. And we celebrate our women. They've been very hardworking, and they are still very hardworking. I'm sure they are going to help us narrow the gender pay gap, the gender job seeking, and all of that. So I think we need to encourage them.
Placed in U.S., is it a state that has made it compulsory to have women on boards as well?
In fact, it's one key requirement.
financial discipline.
It's one key requirement today for good corporate governance to have a female representation on the board. You can check with the FIFA reforms as well. And
there's a general secretary that's from UN that is a fact. I've forgotten her name. General secretary as well. Toma,
one interesting thing about the Jessley ice cream. The interesting thing was the award they got at the Ghana Club 100 was actually based on public voting. Right at the launch of the Ghana Club 100, they opened voting at the start of the Ghana Club 100 launch and ended the voting just before the end of the event. And Jessley beat 2 other companies to emerge best new company in Ghana, the best new SME in Ghana. I think it was a very impressive
And I think we should be profiling a lot more of these enterprise to encourage a lot of let's not only women but men as well. Maybe we need to learn from them now.
Send your boy.
And what she does is completely local value added. She doesn't import any of her ingredients. They're all so it's totally local value added.
It tells you this thing about what women can do.
We want us to rate this, right? If there's something higher than this, that's what
let's rate
that's what I think.
I think we're all getting gold on that one.
Yes.
Let's look at also the T3 infrastructure and the plan to also develop entire infrastructure in the country. I would give it a gold as well, and the fact that I still believe that air transport in this country is still underdeveloped, and the infrastructure would help, and how we can direct traffic to the commercial viable regions, and not just any region as well, in putting up airstrips or airport or domestic terminals and all the rest. So a gold on both those who thought about it and those who are actually implementing it as well.
Why I'm not putting the gold is, just as you said about the people, it was designed and basically implemented by one set of people who are now changed for another set of people, really for political, just because of, how things change when there's a new change of government. And I have my worries about our changing people strictly because of politics. Somebody has done so well in doing this
Talking about Charles Asare.
And he really transformed the way Ghana Airports Company operates, the way it finances itself, even down to introducing IFR, International Financial Standards, for its accounting, in order to be getting international finance on commercial basis. All right. The T3 was basically funded on its own balance sheet, using a consortium of borrowers led by EcoBank, ADB and EcoBank. On its own balance sheet, the government provides guarantees and stuff like that.
So and let's give credit where it's due.
Yeah, we should also give credit to I wouldn't even say him as the previous top management. They were booted out simply because the party that appointed them lost an election.
We're going to go into 2019 as well. And again, where should we keep our eyes on? Which sectors? But for you, Prof, who was your winner in 2018 in terms of the person who did a lot of things and stood out for you that you thought that you can do more? Who was your winner 2008?
I think that it was tough for Bank of Ghana in terms of the interventions in the sector, but they did quite well. So I think that the central bank, the governance, they did quite well. Public confidence in the central bank had gone down a bit and all of that, but I think with all that they've done so far, I think they've done quite well, and that has been very supportive to the economy as well. And then also, I can't leave out Ken. I think that the finance minister has done very well, and his team. There is still a lot that has to be done. If you look at where they pick the economy from, the challenges with the constraints on the revenue envelope, and they are really
the commitments to consumption spending, which has been foisted on him by the presidency, which even he does not agree with.
And all of that. I think the finance minister and his team have also done well.
That your winner, Toma.
I would agree. I think I will agree with Prof on
my winner 2018. I think I'll give it to the governors of the Bank of Ghana. If everything sometimes is about leadership, then maybe they have shown leadership in certain actions that they took.
In fact, it's down to leadership. We are told in our local language also that fish rot from the head. So leadership is
I'm looking at some actions that are deemed to be tough, that at the end of the day, time will tell whether what they took, those actions that they took, was right or was wrong and all those, right? So I would give it to the... Okay, so
let's raise the Bank of Ghana now.
Yeah,
since we seem to be we all seem to be agreeing.
I will give them a green.
I'll also give them a green.
You're giving them a gold star.
Oh yeah, because
quickly let's do the losers 2018. Then we'll look at the out of losers 2018.
Yeah.
Quite a tough one, right?
It's very
government,
tough.
Men's Gold, Finance Minister.
I think Men's Gold lost. I think Men's Gold lost. Men's Gold disappointed Ghanaians. Men's Gold perhaps abused the trust of the customers and all of that. And I think that is not good. And I think it's one of the low points for us as a country. It's gone beyond just Men's Gold because the news is out there and all of that, the implications and all of that. And I think also, should I say greed? Is one of the losers. I hope they lost.
Can we personalize greed? I can see greed going on over there. Thomas.
Well, it's related to what Tom said. I think the biggest losers is the bulk of the ownership and management of the local financial intermediation industry, whether it's banks, microfinance institutions, savings and loans, or rural or community banks. They have lost in the basis that they have been exposed for the bad they have been doing. And secondly, a lot of new directives have been put in place which prevents them from doing a lot of the bad things they have been doing in the past, which they have been using to line their pockets. So I think they are the biggest losers because from 2019, it will not be the same for them again.
I would look at the local currency and how it's been handled, and for me, that's my low for 2018. Again, I'll say that despite all the good things at the macro level, the argument would be that why is it not impacting on the local currency? And for me, whoever was supposed to take whatever actions, be it on the monetary side.
I think we cannot blame it totally on the central
George has
bank.
forgotten when the CD would depreciate by 31% in the first half of the year.
But Blapes
now
agreed.
We have got to.
Blapes agreed, but could we have a way, a long-term, medium solution?
The solution to me is simple.
It's a one district contract.
No, reduce the amount, reduce the proportion of your debt, public debt financing from foreigners.
But you also want to be very careful because it may crowd out the domestic private sector as well in terms of their access to credit. So we decided to open it up to foreign investors so we need
the forex. Like the private pension fund market. If you look at the laws for how you can invest private pension fund, it's all directed towards government.
Yeah, George, I think that if you look at where
and it's long-term
we started from, not to talk about regime necessarily, I think that it's too early to think that all the measures government has put in place would have yielded the needed results for the CD. We should be looking at it in terms of medium to long term.
Let's look at
all these things.
Let's look at areas to watch or where to watch in 2019, Prof.
I think that fine. We should, in terms of the economy, maybe one planting for food and jobs. I expect that there will be a lot more from that area in terms of agribusiness as
growing
well.
what we eat, eating what we grow, domestication, the least and large.
Yes, I think that we've seen some effect of the policy 2018, and I think government has resolved to consolidate that going forward. Then we also begin to talk about the value addition and all of that. But I'm also thinking that 2019, we should be seeing a lot more commitment, not only in terms of words, in terms of our resolve in dealing with corruption. Is very, very important, not only at the political level, the highest level, maybe at our various workplaces and all of that. We all have a role to play in ensuring that we preserve the public purse.
Thomas,
I think that in 2019, we'll start seeing the one district, one factory scheme actually come out into the open in terms of more factories actually being opened. Because there are so many now in the process, so people are looking at it like nothing is happening. But there are several that are nearly there, which will be open during 2019. But I think the biggest thing we should watch out for is the changes in tax administration and the results that will come out of that, especially when the tax identification number actually starts being used as a prerequisite for accessing public goods and services, which will happen.
Let me add that, 2018 has also been very good for us in terms of digitization of the economy. That drive has been very good, and I think it has to be sustained going forward. I think it's very, very good.
I would watch the banking space. I think that we are not over yet. I would also be looking at Ghana Cedi as well, and whether all these measures that are taken are being implemented would indeed end up ensuring that we have a medium-term strategy in firmly stabilizing the city. And earlier on, the clips that we played has to do with the inspiring stories of 2018. Madam Rita Aku-Shika Diaba, CEO of Yesley Eyes, voted as the company of the future during the 17th edition of the Ghana Club 100, and the vote was done live. Ruth Dufia was named as BBC list of 100 inspiring and influential women from around the world in 2018. And catch full stories on Joy News at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Again, kudos to these women who are actually giving real meaning when you talk about the fact that what men are doing, the women can even do better on that one. And all too soon we'll be bringing the curtain down on this whole discussion that we're having. Behind the scenes, a lot of things have happened, things that happen that you don't get to see, some you get to see as well. A lot have gone on behind the scenes, and it's also hasn't been that smooth at all. Let's start with my colleague Philip Namfuri, who has been with Joy Business for just about 7 months.
So here we are. Even super confident people like Philip are at times slow off the mark. Take one.
So we're here at the Women's World Banking head office, adjacent to the Tesano police station at the campus. Women's World Banking.
Take two.
So we're here at the Women's World Banking Ghana head office, right here in Tesano. After an interaction with...
And again. Take three.
So we are here at the head office of Women's World Banking Ghana, a savings and loans company in the country, and the head office is situated right here in Tesano. Now, the CEO, Charlotte Bedu, has called.
Take four.
So we're here at the head office of the Women's World Banking Ghana, a savings and loans company right here in Tesano. Now, the Chief Executive Officer, Madam Charlotte Bedu, has called on all microfinance institutions, particularly savings and loans companies like hers, to ensure that a greater proportion of lending goes to women. She also calls on them to go out there, adopt a hands-on approach to ensure that they understand the businesses these women operate, and by doing that, ensure a greater proportion of their lending goes to women. For Joy Business, Philip Namfuri.
So what does a vulture symbolize? In the Mayan culture, the vulture was considered a symbol of cleansing, renewal and transformation. But the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, was thrown by a question put to her by George Rafi.
Final words to Ghanaians who are watching you, who are listening to you, and all this kept us about the IMF program, who thought that, well, when they hear the IMF, they think about something else. The vultures are in town again.
Do I look like a vulture?
Not you, our organization.
So Odelia, Philip and Norvan are known as our Opian team, who break everything down. At least they try to. They think they know everything.
So I've got, this iPad, or what is it?
It's a tab.
It's a tab. That's again.
What do you call this one? Tablet?
Should I go?
Then let me bring you an iPad, brother.
Well, so I have this tab, and indeed 3 phones. They're all mine.
Don't forget my newspaper. Don't forget my newspaper, please.
Okay, so he has a newspaper I need to read, and then he needs to talk to his wife, and he needs to talk to his girlfriend. Now, well, with all these, my beautiful phones,
okay, hold on. I'm not feeling this one. I'm not feeling this one. Yeah,
to his wife and the girlfriend.
You need to be creative. You need to be creative.
Change it.
You are the creative master, please. You need to be creative. Today,
talk to wife and girlfriend style.
Reading the business bulletin can be a breeze for Sandra, but signing off and handing over can be challenging.
That's all for business with me, Sandra Esenam Apenu. Thanks so much for watching Alaba. Did I say Alaba?
But you can't speak to me.
It's Araba. She's standing by for the rest of the stories.
As we saw earlier with Philip, stand-ups can be quite interesting, especially if you can't get your tongue around the words. This is what we call Karen's classic clangers.
So now we can see that the idea of going cashlight is cashlight. Last one. So this road right here used to be a part of the Accra and Sawam rail line. Now the renovation of this 40-kilometer, oh, my mistake. I've left out important, but let me just. Okay, so I just bought the shirt using my mobile money account. Now I did that with to lease by Soko show that maize, a bag of maize. Oh, the report to lease by Soko show that a bag of maize had increased in price. Oh, okay.
We at times forget names, even if the person is standing right next to us. Clicking our fingers may help, but it didn't work for Eben.
So just a moment ago, digging out as listed on the alternative markets, we have me here, I have with me here, Mr. Benjamin Afre.
It can be difficult when you're doing a piece to camera and need to communicate with your cameraman at the same time. But George does it so well.
The meeting brought together banking chiefs, central bank governors, business leaders, those in the academia, as the IMF managing director took stands to address them on what the program is about and her vision for Ghana and the global economy. She also took the opportunity to assure Ghanaians on how far managers of the economy have come in terms of managing things and ensure that the economy is robust and strong. She, however, maintained that revenue is still a major concern for Ghana, and a lot must be done to improve the situation. She was, however, optimistic that things are going to be well for Ghana going forward. From Kempinski Hotel, here in Accra, this is George Afre reporting for Joy Business.
Before we go,
hey, cameraman.
Joy Business, empowering.
And indeed, those are the cuts that you don't ever see, but we're bringing you those behind the scenes issues that happen, and those takes, you have to take them over and over again to get a good shot for our viewers and also our listeners on radio. Well, all too soon we have to draw the curtain down on our review for the year 2018. And I hope 2019 brings us some exciting times for our viewers, for our listeners, and even for our readers online. We had this show with Professor Godfrey Bobkin, who has been a huge resource to us for the year. And he was also my lecturer at University of Ghana, Legon. I hope I've been a good student, Prof. And we are coming back again, so I hope that you would pass us again.
Yeah.
And your last words, Prof.
So when I saw what you guys were going through just to do this, I was like, I thank God I joined academia. At least when I make mistakes, my students will think it's part of the game, you know. But that's good. I think that we all have to be moderate with our expectations for 2018. Yes, it's very, very important because that itself can put pressure on government and they may overspend going forward. But and I think that we have to resolved to support one another in 2019. Especially, we have to be able to support the state institutions that are trying to do their work and doing very well, like Ghana Revenue Authority, because like he said, there will be a lot of these tax measures and all of that that are going to be implemented next year. They need the support of all of us. And then I think that when it comes to certain things, whether you are in opposition or you are in government, it should be able to bring us together because we have one Ghana. So we don't raise the political temperature beyond the level, because once we enter 2019, people begin to think about the 2020 election, and then the whole chemistry begins to also change and all of that. So I think that, and I wish the private sector well in 2019, so we pick up.
Thomas, a minute.
Well, I'm looking forward to 2019 in terms of the change of economic philosophy from demand management to supply side economics. I support that change because it puts us in good state to create jobs. And let's face it, I mean, we sit down here, we are gainfully employed, everything's okay for us. But just give a thought to the millions of Ghanaians who want to work and don't have jobs. And this is the one thing the government can do that can give them a chance to actually change their lives.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas Otusu. We have to draw the curtain down on our review 2018 and expect more from us in 2019 here at Joy Business. More to come, more interesting things for you. My name is George Yafe. Have a good evening and Happy New Year to all our viewers, listeners, and readers on my joyonline/business.